Hello,
Hey, what's up, Jay? How you doing?
doing good. How about you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Like your t-shirt.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Do you guys I know I think Rita attends KubeCon. Do you attend KubeCon?
I haven't been yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year's in Atlanta and I'm based out of Atlanta.
Oh,
So I'm hoping maybe my job sends me and it'll be my first time. So if you do attend or if Rita or any of the other maintainers would be nice to meet you guys in person.
yeah. Yeah, I think Rita might be there.
Okay.
Me, I'm not yet sure. So let's see.
Okay.
I know you were hoping to discuss the solution, but Rita is not going to be able to join today.
Okay.
Uh, so I responded on the issue you created and tagged Rita there with whatever we discussed so far. So like we just might be doing it async, and let's just wait for her to respond and see what she thinks as well.
Fair. Okay. Yeah. I did want to ask a couple more questions, not really about the fix or contribution, or maybe both that are with Rita, I understand. We'll wait for her feedback on the best approach. But if I can ask a couple more questions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Um, so the first one, and keep in mind this is my first would be my first time contributing to open source. Any project. So, you know, I see that, and spoke about this offline on Slack a little bit, but the prereqs when you guys use these tools like Kind and Tilt, um, in the way that you responded, I guess, are not mandatory for me to, use as a software development cycle. As long as the PR can be tested, right? Or the changes can be tested, then that's really all that matters. I didn't know if you guys had like automated workflows with these tools that like are mandatory. But I guess maybe they are. So like if I put in code changes, right, into the Golang and you have automated processes that checks that out and then runs, maybe builds a kind cluster, uses tilt, however it's doing. That would be okay as long, it's just not mandatory for me locally. I don't have to use those tools. Got it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Just like be mindful that you test out, um, like you run the unit tests and
Yeah.
bets like end-to-end tests in Kubernetes cluster or whatever, right? Just so that uh, like it's just less back and forth if the CI on GitHub ends up failing. And two is like sometimes GitHub runs out of capacities and whatnot, so it just saves some time there as well.
Got it. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Um,
Yeah, so what I generally do is like if you go into Gatekeeper CI workflow directory, it would be, let's see, it would be under .github slash workflows, and then I go look at the couple, like for example Dapper export or just workflow.yaml, right? And now in that one we have a step which basically does run end to end,
mhm.
and there are some steps there. I just shared a link with you on the Zoom chat. So I just copy paste these make rules, and most of the time end up like testing it on kind. But as long as you have a kube config pointing to a valid cluster, it should be fine.
Okay, cool. Understood. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Workflows. Got it, got it, got it. And let me grab that actually, because I always there's no way to reference chat off of Zoom, right? Unless maybe you're paying into it or something.
What do you mean?
Be like the link, if like after we end the call, that link is
Oh yeah,
gone. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
okay,
can, like keep it on the doc, like meeting doc.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect. Um, one thing that I noticed, I didn't add it here to the agenda, but maybe more pressing than the other items I listed with Gatekeeper, right? I know you guys deploy a single instance of the validating and mutating operation, right? And then that's how Helm is packaged to deploy it. And so I've started efforts to look at how can I leverage the chart to install two instances of it, but with separate responsibility, right? The thing that I'm yet to like fully flush that out, but I'm trying to understand for like some of the certificates that it's managing, and I know we can disable the automated certificates, but with what you guys do provide, it looks like one, the secret name is hard coded, right? And two, I see a flag that I don't see documentation for. Um, and wondering if it's a valid flag. And if you don't mind, share sharing screen, okay? Like an
Yeah, yeah,
easier.
yeah, yeah. Of course. Like, be mindful that you don't share anything confidential.
Yeah. No, it's all, just
Yeah,
your GitHub code
yeah.
here.
I'm just like trying to
Yep.
protect you because
Yeah,
like it just can happen.
I hear you. I hear you.
I,
So here
I'm here
is,
for bank account information.
Hello, Victor.
hey, Victor. Uh,
Uh,
got it. Did that work? No, wait. Here. Okay. So I'm sharing Chrome, which is looking at the GitHub, and we'll make that a
Can
little
you
bigger.
zoom in? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was just doing. Okay, so is that okay? That size?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So I know up top here, this is the hard-coded variable for the secret name. And then I saw this variable here, secret service name, which is a flag that I don't see represented anywhere, but I understand that it's the service name used to generate the TLS, right? And this is what I guess gets embedded in the certificate when Gatekeeper automates the certificate. Uh,
Mm.
is that correct? Like, is this and help me if I'm misreading or there's a gap in how I'm reading the docs. How is
Yeah,
this flag?
let me take a look. It's been some time since I looked at this code, so just give me a second and I
Yeah.
can figure it out. Okay. So cert service name is actually a name of the service resource um, which spins up an endpoint in Gatekeeper for communication with external data and I think API server as well. If I'm not
Okay.
wrong. Yeah, so like if it will be an actual let me see where. Like if we have that in deployment, then I can just share you the link.
So it's the actual service name.
Yeah,
Uh,
it should be under deploy slash gatekeeper.yaml. But let me just make sure. Yep. Like if you see there, it should be there should be a service resource under gatekeeper slash
Yeah,
deploy slash YAML, and that's the name. And so it's basically it's in the code. It's forming a URL which is like service name dot namespace name dot svc
yeah, yeah,
uh, for
yeah. So it is a TLS search host name, right? Okay, which is which is good. Um, we can control that, but the actual secret, I guess, is there a reason why we can't override or externalize the secret name? With
uh, I'm not sure. I may need to look at the PR there
yeah,
to see if there was a reason to hard code it and if this has been discussed on that PR or not.
yeah, yeah. I just want to because that's going to drive how we implement. Because today we have to. I'll quickly mention how we deploy it. Right, we have the gatekeeper that's for validating using the cert automation that you guys provide. Right, so it does the secret creation and it does the validating mutation CA bundle placement of that. Um, and that works all fine because it's using the defaults. For the mutating instance, we turn off the disable, we disable the cert uh, creation, and we manage the cert uh, off cycle, right? After the gatekeeper instances is deployed, or I should say rather before it's deployed so that it can actually use that certificate. And then we update the mutating webhook configuration CA bundle with the proper CA certificate. I guess
Yeah.
we would have to maintain that process if we're trying to use the same chart for the different instances. There's no way to like keep them separate, but have both automated. I think the ability of overriding the secret name would be awesome to continue that flow of automation so that within the same gatekeeper namespace, I can have two secrets, right? Um, or can I share this? I guess you can share the secret too, right? The cert,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's already shared, right? Like between audit pod and
Audit,
controller pod.
yeah. Well, audit, we don't send any requests to audit, right? Like there's no webhook configuration. The API server is
Yeah,
not, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But in that
Okay.
sense, like it's shared between three replicas of the controller pod, right?
Yeah, 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 I got you. I guess for the instances, yeah, it could be shared. Let me look into that. As I talked it out, I guess I got a little bit more direction or solutions to this, maybe. Okay, I'll look into that. But it does look like this service name is a cool way to maybe customize this if you don't want to take the default. So that was a good find that I didn't see in the Helm like
Yeah.
validate.
This flag is, I don't think, exported as a part of the Helm thing.
Okay.
Um,
On purpose or
uh,
like
it may be just a miss, and I
a
do
miss?
think
Okay.
that there is a PR up which already
Oh, okay.
does this. Like,
Oh, cool.
so there was a user who raised two PRs, like covering all the missing flags in documentation as well as in Helm chart.
And
Let me just make sure if this is there or not. I reviewed that PR a while back, but it's just
okay.
it kind of been a little bit inactive. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then I guess the last question is like, there's no issues with attempting to use Cert Manager to manage these certificates, right? In Gatekeeper, we would just turn off the cert management capability and then let Cert Manager manage those certificates for those objects. Okay. Yeah, okay. If can you send me that PR or can maybe even post that PR of like the flags that
Yep. It should be 3787 in the gatekeeper repository.
3787. Okay. Take a look at that. Thank you. Cool.
Yeah, feel free to leave a review or comment or whatever
Yeah.
on the PR itself as well.
When this happens where like it becomes kind of I guess you guys call it stale or like what's usually the action? Just chase down the author and try to
Yeah, so I mean, I the last activity from the author was approximately 2 weeks ago, but I don't see any commits after that.
okay.
So, like, if you want, you can just ping the author saying, "Hey," or I was planning to ping the author
Okay.
after like a month or so, so that just like it's a good checkpoint.
Yeah.
There is no there is no standard process or general guidance on when it should happen.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And it's difficult, right? Like, because in open source environment, unless you are directly working with the person and the person is active contributor or a maintainer of the project,
Yeah.
it's kind of a lot of async communication. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. All right. No, yeah, that's cool. You gave me a good tip here to also check PRs, active PRs, in when I'm like researching
yeah.
issues, troubleshooting, because I always go to like just the issues and sometimes the code, like I did for that one, and yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, I guess just to circle back on what we're waiting for Rita, we internally at my firm, we just have to go through a process. I broke it up into first, I need to get this project approved for like contribution. We have an open source kind of committee that reviews all this stuff. And then once that's approved, I don't see why it wouldn't be, but once it's approved, then we can like actually start the coding efforts. I mean, technically I can start now, but if it's not approved, I can't submit it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just high level of how that process is going to work. So, yeah. And then the last question on that is, if at any point, do you offer like a pairing session in case like, there's some real trouble in understanding some of the code
But yeah, of
or
course. Like I so community meeting is a great way to do that. And if we
okay.
need time outside of the community meeting, feel free to ask, and we can probably like with me or whoever we can do that as
Yeah.
well. That's no
Okay. Got it. Yeah, just like on the third a third approach that you propose would be to understand some of like how it's implemented today. The
yeah, yeah,
constraint framework is, separate and but I mean I would study it beforehand. So I think I just wanted to understand that. Okay.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool.
Uh, so do you mind me asking, like, at what capacity are you guys planning to use Gatekeeper? Like, how did you come across this solution, and
Oh yeah, we've been using it for a very long time now since I can't pinpoint the exact version we started using, but it's been probably running since 2020, maybe before that, you know,
Oh, wow.
2019. And and it was only acting as a validating admission controller, right, at first, but it's grown into now using the mutation aspect. So it's fully running as our admission controller for both mutating and validating in different use cases. So yeah,
You
and
guys don't utilize any auditing?
so I think it's implemented, but it's kind of just been running there and not really uh, leveraged maybe the way it's intended for. We're not tracking violations in that sense, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we'll have to like reassess some of that because I was trying to go back to the container statuses, right? Or I might be referring to the wrong name, but the commands that Rita shared about those custom resources that like track statuses. Um, I think in my head I still haven't like cemented their true purpose or value, right, in the overall solution of the ecosystem, the gatekeeper ecosystem, because um I don't think I've paid mind to it or realized that it's there or necessary, to providing the functionality of the admission, right? Um,
Hmm.
so I think I just have to spend a little bit more time to understand that a piece of like the auditing and the statuses. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I was asking is because like it's very rare when we get to come across real users and know and ask questions about how actually are using the product, and understand like for that helps because now we can hoping that you would be able to contribute more and be around. We can
Yeah.
actually think about how the people are using stuff and then drive for the better future.
Yep. Yeah. And I think I need to go back to one of my like lead engineers who decided to separate the functions, right? I don't know if we have like concrete data that assessed putting both functionality in the one gatekeeper instance would be problematic at scale. Because ideally that would be the simpler, cleaner approach that you have built the current environment for. But and I'm going to do some of that kind of homework. And today it's just separate instances. And I mean, to me, it makes sense, right? Keep that functionality, you know, the responsibility separate, um, and not overload one process with all because it's a lot, there's a lot of validating and mutating requests that could come to the pods. Even there's three of them or you can scale higher, but yeah, I think we need to do that exercise just to understand if we really need to continue separate or not. But for now, we have them separate, so we'll want this fix, and that's why we want to contribute back. So sure.
Of course. uh, yeah, anything else you had in mind?
I think that was the really top items. Yeah, I'll look at the stuff we mentioned here with the workflows.
Cool. And if you like, if you feel, if you come up with anything, we can always talk on Slack. So
Cool, cool.
cool. If nothing else, Victor, do you have any questions, any doubt?
Yeah, last time I had a question for Rita. I'm not sure, did you what paid attention at that time. In OpenID Foundation, I mentioned there's a discussion about different type of interoperable policy engines. OPA is mentioned there. So my understanding, if I want to build some fine-grained authentication authorization um, policy engines, OPA is it can be part of it, and the gateway can be, of course, part of it as well. But somehow my understanding, unless I misunderstood, Rita said, as far as she can tell, OPA is not for that purpose. Yeah, just wanted to really learn what OPA is for. Other than, of course, policy engine for Kubernetes, can it be used for other purpose, general purpose engine, policy engine?
So they do. I do think they have a way to do it outside of the Kubernetes environment, but I'm actually like not 100% sure how. Like if you go onto their website, they have this whole thing of other use cases where it can be used with CloudFormation, Docker, GraphQL, Kafka, other stuff. Um, but I haven't used OPA project and Rego outside of Kubernetes or Gatekeeper as a policy engine, so I'm not familiar with that process
Yeah,
anymore.
let me share the website. He is this guy. He's lead in that effort in that community, and he's extending OPA. Looks like into an policy engine solution. Um, and this become like interoperable with the other policy engines. Um, yeah.
So Vic,
Yeah.
I, I can maybe, sorry to interrupt, I can maybe give some kind of descriptions of OPA itself and then OPA Gatekeeper to help kind of understand the distinction. And then I'm still not like, I'm not an expert, but I've been working with OPA enough to understand the differences, right? Um, I've heard of Acerto, the link that you've linked here, and maybe what I believe they're doing under the hood, they're using the OPA project, not OPA Gatekeeper, which is what we're talking about on this community call. Gatekeeper,
Yeah.
separate from OPA, right? OPA is a binary that runs as a server. So it's an API server that you can run to send requests, JSON requests to, and have the Rego policy evaluate and respond with um, either, accepted, denied, or a completely transformed JSON payload. And so that there's several use cases. I think that anybody ever customers or companies can use to run OPA for that type of um, uh, authorization or just logic check that you want against a specific JSON payload. Um, does that clarify a little bit of like the differences between Gatekeeper and then
Yeah.
OPA?
Yeah. I actually read about Gatekeeper. I know it's a specific configuration
Yeah.
uh, proxy, I would say, kind of for Kubernetes only. So OPA, yeah. So my question is, what Armory does that Asserto, for example? It sounds like it's something that I'm interested in because it's fine-grained authentication authorization for even for database. Um, do you think that can be used in the Kubernetes environment to uh, either OPA alone or maybe OPA as part of Asserto as a
Yeah.
fine-grained authorization policy engine?
If I understood your question, yes, OPA can be used independently as a pod. You run it in a pod in a Kubernetes cluster, and if you have the right, you know, service, Kubernetes service, and authorization or RBAC allowing access to it, then you can send requests to it, or other services can send requests to that OPA instance to evaluate the JSON and run your policy against it. Um, And I definitely know that in Kubernetes, you can configure authorization webhooks for the authorization phase of a request, right? So you first have authentication, which is a different plugin. Then authorization, you can configure OPA as your choice of engine to run through Rego policy that you set up to authorize a request, an API request to the API server, right? We're specific talking about Kubernetes workflows here. And then that policy will allow it to move to the next phase of like an API request to admission, which would be Gatekeeper or another product, um, to continue that life cycle, right? So for sure, OPA has various use cases. It's just how you want to run it. And if you're really interested in the OPA like ecosystem, like the OPA website is should have a lot of use cases that show that, right?
Yeah, I just shared like their miscellaneous use cases, and one of them is like auth to annoy DC samples. So yeah, there are extended use cases. And to add on to what Alan said, that uh, you can develop your authorization webhook, and I don't know if people are using it at that in that sense, but constraint frameworks that we have is really an independent framework which you can just incorporate in your project and write constraint templates and constraint style policies similar to how Gatekeeper does it right now. Um, so yeah, that's just FYI.
So maybe since you already know the Asserto, do you know what additional benefit that I guess Asserto provide on top of OPA then?
That's a good question.
Now, if you haven't looked at it, don't worry. I'm just curious if you already look at it.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know how they're like implementing OPA or like leveraging OPA. I know, sir, that they produce different products, right, or solutions. Um,
It's
and
kind
so
of on top of OPA. Just if you look at just the even the title says OPA authorization.
yeah, so like say, so Asserto tenants to me means that they run some type of platform or API service that their tenants need authorization for, and they use OPA for that engine of authorization. And I would assume if you peel back or lift the covers, it's just plain old OPA with Rego policy and how they stand it up with the API and all that stuff is pretty generic or standard. Um, but I don't know enough about their
Yeah,
platform.
you keep on saying that the language. Any other language that's supported, policy and language?
From, from who? Policy languages for supported for Kubernetes or you're on mute, Victor.
Double clicked. Yeah, the when you said Asserto, it's a you said it's a OPA and adding the policy language you mentioned. What is that again? Actually I think I've heard that name before, but I just cannot remember. So OPA, is there multiple policy language that's supported? Is there or like there's only one language that's supported?
For OPA itself, the language is Rego, right?
Rigo, yeah, that's yeah. So
Rego, yeah,
so there's
that's the one.
no other language, right? Just Rigo.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
for OPA, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Um, do you think because when I talked to him in the OpenID Foundation meeting, my understanding that engine, Acerto and similar, the other interoperable engines can be used to for fine-grained authorization to I used to work for Oracle, so so the some of the former Oracle buddies went out there and created a company called Snowflake, and then the fine-grained one of the advantage compared with the other open source database is it has not exactly but similar fine-grained authentication authorization as the Oracle database. And whereas in the open source database, it's really there's not really a kind of a detailed fine-grained authentication authorization available. That make it not secure enough in many ways. So that's why I'm thinking this could be using OPA or something as an engine can provide that kind of a fine-grained authentication authorization services. Do you, in your opinion, do you think it's OPA is this a possibility?
For fine grain access, right? I mean, I don't see why not, right? When I think of fine grain access, is it more like attribute based? You know, um,
If you look at the
or
Snowflake's authentication authorization model, um, yeah, because they're using cloud services, so they must be using something very similar, right? So if you see
yeah,
the, let me click the fine grained, I just pasted, this is the Snowflake documentation. Um, the Snowflake access control, security access control. So they use cloud services, right? The backend they use you know AWS 3, cloud, all those cloud services. So they build this detailed. This is very similar to what Oracle database does, except it's not within the database binary itself. It's something I would imagine similar to OPA policy engine. So can OPA do something like this?
I think
So Rego has a significant amount of coding support and like it can support complex logic around however you want to authenticate stuff based on the against the set of input, right? So you'll need a contextual input against which you need to run the policy. So if the input contains enough data, then I don't think Rego has any restriction on how you can process that data. So I don't see a reason why it should not support anything similar to this.
Yeah, that's some I hope, yeah. Um yeah, this according to the group in the OpenID Foundation, not only the Asserto but other engines, that seems to be the case. Yeah, that's why I come back here. Because mentioned Open mentioned a lot there. I say, okay, well, it's open source project. Let me just come back here and ask questions. That's why I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, it is a very the reason this is getting popular is not only the database use case, it's also, in the agentic AI age, there's need for
mm,
context specific authentication authorization, which even another layer of dynamic authorization beyond what Snowflake does. So that's why this is an area that's ripe for some innovation.
I would ask Jay, do you know if like the regular OPA project has office hours like or community calls like you could do for Gatekeeper? I
Yeah,
know they
I was looking at that just right now on OPA's website to figure it out, but I didn't see any regular
yeah.
office hours or whatnot. But so I'm sharing a link on Zoom, which I've seen people use to ask questions. It's a discussion board on the community itself, and it's pretty responsive and active. So, like I would advise like I've seen people ask question there and whatnot, announcement and other stuff. So I would advise, if you have like OPA related question and want to reach out to community, that might be a good place. And or otherwise, like on the Slack there is a channel with help, and I think that's also a great channel to reach out to OPA maintainers directly.
Yeah, and I know the open maintainers, they're all pretty good at, they're pretty active and
Yeah.
responsive. Yeah. So yeah, Slack of the discussion board would be really good to find the OPA experts and maintainers.
All right, that's all my question. Thank you.
Cool.
Cool.
Perfect. Thanks for joining. And if
Thanks, guys.
nothing else, then I'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.